What's up, guys? My name is Steven Guadagni with 5 Tool Sports Science, right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We got a good video for you today. We got the role of lead knee extension and pitching velocity versus arm stress. We're going to be looking at a study by Britney Dowling called The Influence of Lead Knee Extension on Ball Velocity and Elbow Varus Torque in Professional and High School Baseball Pitchers. So it was 100 total pitchers, 50 professional, 50 high school. Pretty good. That's really good to have that many professional pitchers and high school pitchers. So it's going to be a pretty good quality study. Let's get into it. All right, so key findings. Lead knee extension directly impacts ball velocity. So for every 1 degree increased in lead knee extension, ball velocity increased by 1.06 miles per hour. So the pro high velocity group had 33 degrees of extension. They threw significantly harder than the pro low group, who had 1 degree of extension. And then the high school high velocity group had 18 degrees of extension, and they outperformed the high school low group, who had -7 degrees of flexion. Which was a 6.5 mile per hour on average difference. All right, so better knee extension was equaling better energy transfer and higher velocity from both the professional and the low group. So let's talk a little bit about it. So the knee extension, they're talking about landing and flexion, and then how many degrees of extension they were getting, okay? And then they were talking also about peak knee extension velocity, so how quickly this was moving, which we'll get to in a second, all right? So just so we're all on the same page of what lead knee extension is. Okay, so professional pitchers, they managed arm stress better. So not only were the pro high pitchers throwing harder, but they had lower elbow varus torque than pro low, despite a higher velocity. All right, so in the elbow torque, we'll talk about a little bit. So elbow valgus torque is going to be going backward. So that gets talked about a lot in arm injuries, where we're talking about the valgus load. So think of it, the thumb going back. That's the load on the elbow as you go into external rotation. Varus torque is that pinky finger, and it's coming forward. So this would be the varus torque of the elbow. Okay, so not only were the professional high velocity pitchers throwing harder, but they were putting less varus torque on their elbows going forward, all right? So in contrast, the high school high pitchers experienced higher torque than the high school low, indicating poor kinetic chain integration. So they were pretty much finding that the high school guys might not have been sequencing or using the kinetic chain as effectively, despite having higher velocity and good front leg bracing. They might have been doing some of the back half stuff like hip rotation, hip to shoulder separation, maybe arm path. They might have had some other poor mechanical issues, okay? High lead knee extension requires strength and coordination, all right? So strength and coordination is kind of getting thrown around by this strength coach called Franz Bosch, and I kind of like it. So instead of strength and conditioning, it's a strength and coordination. I like that because coordination in the throwing, in the pitching delivery, it just requires a lot of coordination. There's timing, there's sequencing, there's coordination of these movements that is going to separate the high velocity guys from the low velocity guys. Even in this study talking about the lead knee extension, it's still requiring the timing, all right? So pro pitchers showed higher lead knee extension velocity, 409 degrees per second versus 187 degrees per second in pro low. So again, we were talking about not only were they getting more degrees of front leg knee extension, but the speed of it was faster. All right, so the pro guys were moving that extension back faster. They were producing better timing and coordination, and then the extension velocity served as a kinetic chain braking effect, allowing the pelvis and trunk rotation and energy transfer. So we've talked about this in previous videos of just the role of the front leg. It's the braking effect of the linear momentum and the rotational energy transfer. It creates the deceleration, which is going to then allow that trunk to just whip and go into some forward trunk tilt. So it allows the trunk to just rotate hog wild and start to push into some linear forward trunk tilts, all right? So that's kind of the role of that front leg. But these high velocity guys were timing it and using it significantly faster and more effective than the low velocity guys. All right, so the youth pitchers struggle with full kinetic chain synchronization. So when they were looking at youth pitchers, the high school pitchers here, despite matching knee angles at front foot contact, the high school low pitchers collapsed further into flexion mid-delivery. All right, so let's talk about that for a second. So this is pretty common flaw that you'll see in low velocity guys of what happens with the front leg. So they're coming into leg lift, they're going through their movement. Oops, let me redo that because that was unathletic. Moving into their front foot strike, rotating the hips, landing closed, okay? But what will happen is instead of this bracing, all right, they'll start to sink into it and into their throw. So they didn't get a good block of that front leg, all right? They sunk into it, or even sometimes you'll get guys that like, they'll land at front foot strike, but they'll start to rotate the knee out this way, all right? That would be a bad blocking of the rotational transfer, all right? So those are some of the things that guys can do at front foot strike that is going to hurt their velocity. So early trunk rotation, limited hip torque, and weaker legs likely contributed to the inefficiencies. Greater variability in youth mechanics explained higher elbow torque, even with better knee extension. So again, talking about the high school guys, even though they were getting 18 degrees of that front leg extension and they were throwing harder, their back half mechanics might have been messed up. They might not have been, you know, rotating their hips as well. They might not have been landing in as much separation. Their arm timing might have been late. There could have been other variabilities in their mechanics that was explaining the higher elbow torque, even with the better knee extension. Okay, so practical applications. Prioritize total body strength and explosiveness, the knee extension timing, and full kinetic chain coordination. It's not just looking at, okay, just the front leg, right? The front leg is just a piece of it. It's one of the most important pieces, in my opinion, especially when we're linking it to ball velocity. But you have to prioritize the total body strength and explosiveness, the timing, and the full kinetic chain coordination, all right? So teaching the sequencing, hip rotation, trunk to arm, stable knee, everything. You have to teach everything together. Use tools like a motion capture like we have here, or high-speed video to track knee extension over time. And then most importantly, don't chase velocity at the cost of arm stress. Learn how velocity and joint torques are linked, all right? So you can be gaining velocity, you know, and with each rise in velocity, your torques are gonna be going up. You have to know how to limit the amount of torques with proper biomechanics, but then also strengthen the body, strengthening the arm, strengthening the total body to limit the torque's effect on putting you at a higher risk of injury, okay? So I wouldn't chase velocity just for the sake of the velocity, just like, okay, I need to get better knee extension so that I can put more velocity onto my arm. Yes, it's going to increase your velocity, but you're also putting more torque on the arm, which can put you at a higher risk of injury. So just make sure you're looking at it from the full scope, that you are developing your full kinetic chain, that you're developing the body in speed, strength, and explosiveness. You're measuring your arm with the dynamometer. You're strengthening your arm. You're learning the correct pitching mechanics to give yourself the best chance to not only throw hard, but throw healthy. There's no point in throwing hard if you're not available and you can't stay healthy, all right? So those would be my big recommendations, and I think we got I think that might be it. Yeah, that was it. All right, so that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it helps. See you next time.